Well, hello. How are you all today? Don't worry about me. I've just had an overdose on chocolate. I got out the house, so I went and got some chocolate. So I'm high on chocolate. How are you all today? I hope you're doing good. And I apologize. The title is a little bit clickbaity, but Friday 13th is a huge day. We've got Friendly Geordies and John Barilaro and Google in court on Friday to receive judgment as whether the interlocutory application is going to be accepted. We've got Sky News Australia and YouTube and the Australian Communications Media Authority fronting the Senate for a please explain on why Sky News got suspended for a week from YouTube. And on Friday the 13th, one of the people, Katie Joy, filed her harassment order against is contesting it. Yes, that's right. It's Katie versus Katie at 10:30 a.m. Friday the 13th. Now, some people would say Friday the 13th is unlucky for some. However, it's going to be good luck for someone. So anyway, it's a huge day. And tomorrow, Kristo is in court again. So, big week. So, that is the summary. Yes, so it is Judgment Day for people. It is going to be Judgment Day. So, and unfortunately, I can't be everywhere at once. And if we're out of lockdown, I also have to work. So, it's going to be crazy. Hello, Kino. So, yes. Erin Costello, EKC People Sucks, she actually had the document to show the hearing for Friday for Katie Joy. So I know why she's being quiet, because she wants to show the court that she is well behaved on social media, I guess. So I've got that to show you. I've got one of the government ministers was sanctioned today. Yes, well, not sanctioned. He was called in it. There was a motion that the Parliament disagree with what he said, and the Parliament filed a motion today to disagree with what he said. Sorry, Joe, can you repeat what the court case for Katie is about? Oh, yes. So Katie Joy had talked about how she'd filed a restraining order. Are they on Paster? I can't access Paster being in Australia. And yes, she did actually file. And on Friday, it's been contested. So let me pull up what I've got for you. So I apologize. This is really bad. This is actually a screenshot from Erin's screen. And I did ask her whether I can use parts of her stream, and she said, yes, I can. I did ask for permission. But see, it's another stream on. So this says, I know, that's funny, isn't it? It says Katie, McDermott Katie, Paulson Catherine. 13th, 38th, 2021, 10:38 a.m. Stephen M. Halsley. Harassment hearing. You've got the respondent and the petitioner, and then the court number. So, Katie McDermott is challenging the harassment order. To be fair, I mean, to be honest with you, she would have a point, because remember, Catherine Paulson went very hard naming all these people and was very nasty on Twitter. So it could actually be argued that, hello, Cal. Thank you for becoming a member the other day. Thank you, by the way. It could actually be argued that Catherine Paulson actually harassed her. if it was me, that's how I would be arguing it. If it was my case, I would be showing all the Twitter messages that she's put out there and saying, well, actually, she said this, she said this, she said this, she said this, and just bombard the court with what she's done. Because, and don't forget, she's also had mob. She's also Catherine Paulson. Well, that's the other thing, Will, is I would say there's a block button. Because she made a big thing about, you know, when she filed the order that nobody could go to her house. I don't know anyone that lives near her. I mean, that's Saturday my time. So that's good because I'll get up on Saturday and I can follow that. It would be funny if it was the one Katie McDermott. Actually, that would be really funny. But so that's Friday, US time. Hello, Sue. You think LMN is wasting her time? Well, you know, it might be, but you want to go down with a fight because you remember Katie Joy is used to people backing down. She needs somebody to, you know. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether any of that's fake, any of that's true. I don't know whether those screenshots are real. I don't know whether they were sent, who sent them. I've seen nothing to give me any proof that anyone's behind it. Yes, Katie McDermott has admitted to doing some stuff with Nat, but that doesn't mean that she's behind the harassment. It doesn't mean that she's guilty of doing everything that Katie Joy has said that she's done. But I've still not seen enough evidence to be able to be confident that I could say it was her. I've only seen screenshots that have been highly edited, and I don't trust highly edited screenshots. And I've seen lots of streams where there have been highly edited screenshots on the screen, and I don't really believe any of it. Look, she will probably get done for that, but isn't that dealt with the police, not a harassment order, though? That's the thing. I don't know that a harassment order is what. I don't know. Was that her voice, Sue? Well, I've said that I wanted to kill people too, to be honest with you. I mean, look, I'm not defending her. I'm just stating she's asked for a hearing, and I'm just saying to you, this, if it was me, this is how I would go about it. Remember, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a law nerd. But this is how I would go about it. And I have had a false restraining order filed against me in the past. So I also know what that's like. And it took me, by the time I cleared my name, it was expired. It wasn't worthwhile continuing. But, you know, and the amount of evidence that I had all the evidence to prove that it wasn't me, but the evidence that they had was redacted emails and everything like that. And the judge went and said, no, I need more than that. So if Katie's only got little screens, everything I have seen so far, unless Nat has done everything, I just don't think it's possible unless she's a vampire and never sleeps. Look, I'm not saying that LMN is Nat's exactly. She's involved somehow, but whether you can pin harassment on her, I don't know. And surely that would be criminal, filing false police reports and stuff, rather than civil. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. And we've got to also, I've got to also remember that it is Katie Joy. And that's where I've got to, the little journalist that cried wolf is how I look at it. Because how many times have we heard that she's been harassed, you know? And now it's the cult. It's either them, or it's LMN, or it's someone else, or it's Frosty the Snowman, or it's Santa Claus, or it's the Tooth Fairy. There's always somebody, and that to me, if it was me, I would be. That's how I would be approaching it, to defend myself. That's all. That's how I would be doing it. But then the Australian system, I would imagine, is different to the American. I don't know how it's in America, but yeah. Hello, Joanne. I know Uniroc's lost his mind. It's crazy, isn't it? More than usual? I've missed a lot of Uniroc in the last couple of days. I have university Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays online at the moment, so I'm often busy. No, I haven't talked about Kristo yet, Cal. I'm getting there. I'm still technically on the introduction, Cal. I haven't got into the real content. I was just talking about what I did was saying about how busy Friday was. That we've got Barilaro, Shanks, and Google on Friday. You got Sky News Australia and ACMA and YouTube facing the Australian Senate, and over Sky News Australia being banned from YouTube. And Sky News Australia has been deleting all their content, funnily enough, and Kevin Rudd's been posting on Twitter all the deleted videos, which I find to be hilarious. And then Katie Joy is in court with Katie McDermott over the harassment order. So that's where we got as far as the harassment order. I was just saying how Friday the 13th is very, very busy. You can't keep up with politics of late. Well, Barnaby's stuck. He can't attend Parliament at the moment because he's in lockdown. Dutton can't attend Parliament because he's in lockdown. And there was a motion in the Senate today that the government miscounted, and they actually passed them. Yes, Katie McDermott is LMN. So I've got some more government stuff to do. It is mainly Sky in the scope. Well, that's what ACMA has to explain why they've taken no action, and they've asked YouTube to explain why they took the action, which they know, but they're wanting to know why the media regulator didn't actually why it took YouTube to take action, and not the regulator. I know. The only problem is that Christian Porter's the leader of the House. That is my problem. However, he did allow, for the first time ever, he did allow Labor to pass a motion. I just realised how that sounded. They suspended standing orders to condemn George Christensen, and that motion got through today. So, oh, and it's also census night. I hope all the Aussies have done their census, or their senseless census. So let's start with the George Christensen story, and then we'll segue into the other stuff. So this is for all our international. You think we have a lot of tools in Parliament. This is another one. We actually have a few tools in Parliament. You've met Barnaby. This is George. Don't be like George. Federal Government MP George Christensen has been condemned by federal Parliament after describing COVID restrictions as madness. In a brief speech to Parliament just before question time, he's a tool. Mr. Christensen called for the end to measures such as masks and lockdowns, arguing they did not work. How posturing politicians, many over there, the sensationalist media elite and the dictatorial medical bureaucrats need to recognise these facts and stop spreading fear. COVID is going to be with us forever, just like the flu. And just like the flu, we will have to live with it. We're not in constant fear of it. Some people will catch it. Some people will tragically die. That's inevitable. Our society back up, restore our freedoms, end this madness. Our Labor leader Anthony Albanese successfully moved a motion condemning Mr. Christensen's comments. I want him sent to New South Wales with no mask. Exactly. And they condemned him for spreading misinformation. So this is what Albo said. I'll tell you what is madness. Madness is saying let this disease rip, let people die, let the whole economies be shut down. Let us stop being able to return to our way of life, he told the chamber. Mr. Christensen has announced he's retiring at the next election, but Albanese argued the coalition should expel him. Prime Minister Scott Morrison told Parliament his government does not support misinformation in any way, shape or form. Really? So this says we're going to run that race all the way to the finish line, but we're going to do it as Team Australia. We're not going to do it any other way, which seeks to divide Australians and set Australians against one another. So Christensen also attended an anti-lockdown rally in Queensland, and they had to keep reminding him to put his mask on. So he is not being very helpful. So I want to share with you a speech that is actually going all over the internet. This is from a Labor member. So this is a Dr. Mike Freelander. Now he's a politician. He was a pediatrician for 37 years before he entered politics. So I think he knows about medicine, and there's a lot of children at the moment in Sydney that are very sick with COVID. And he actually took great offence to what George Christensen was saying. I'm going to play it. It's 10 minutes. I have to say, when I first heard it, I bawled my eyes out. So because he talks about it exactly, he doesn't pull any punches when he's talking about how deadly this strain is. So have a listen, and then we'll talk about it. And also note the Prime Minister. He's got his back to him. Just watch the Prime Minister. This is respect.
The question is that the motion moved by the Leader of the Opposition be agreed to, and I call the member for Macarthur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
So someone's going to speak, and he pulls out his phone and turns his back.
15 minutes, and like Voldemort, he couldn't even mention the member for Dawson's name. So the race that was not a race is now a race. Now, for me, this is very, very personal. I've been contacted on multiple occasions in the last few weeks from my medical colleagues, from my relatives who work on the front line in intensive care, in hospitals that are really under the pump, under pressure because of the outbreak that's occurring in Sydney. 356 cases today, 60 in ICU, many on ventilators, 6 deaths associated with the outbreak at Liverpool Hospital because of a healthcare worker who was infected. To have the Leader of the Opposition move this motion today, I can only say thank God and thank you. It is about time those in government called to account those on their side who are undermining our response to the pandemic, to those whose statements are costing lives, and to those who are doing everything they can to undermine our national response to which is to something that's the biggest health crisis in over a century. And I don't just mean the member for Dawson, the member for Hughes, of course, the captain's pick at the last election, Senator Rennick, Senator Canavan, and others who are doing their best to cause increasing fear, increasing distrust, and are undermining our response to the critical time in this pandemic. This Delta variant make no mistake, is a different game. This is something that we still do not know how it's going to end. And we have to do everything we can to maximise our response, to maximise our immunisation rates, to maximise our social distancing, to make sure that people who are, of course, fearful, and with fear comes distrust, of course they're fearful of what's happening. Many in my electorate have lost their livelihoods. Many in my electorate cannot see how they're going to pay the next mortgage repayment, who can't see how they can protect their own kids, who can't see their kids even going back to school. And yet we have people on the government benches who are actively undermining our response. Now, I don't like to see healthcare workers as heroes. And I'm sure the member for Higgins can understand this. What they do is they get up every day and they go to work, some of them putting their lives at risk because that's the job they do, because they care about people and they want to make sure that our response is the best that it possibly can be. And that's just the job they sign up for. The nurses, the doctors, the cleaners, the pathology technicians, they're the people that save lives. I don't save lives sitting here as a member of Parliament, but I recognise that it is a huge privilege. And with that privilege comes a huge responsibility. And when I see people on any side of politics doing active harm to our response to this crisis, this health crisis, it just makes me angry. They should not be ignored. They should be called out on every occasion, because what they are doing is disgraceful. And I think any sensible person would understand that the time has to come when they should be called out. Now, we've seen in countries like India and Brazil and Indonesia, thousands, hundreds of thousands, indeed even millions of deaths. And to call this pandemic or this virus like the flu, surely that is beyond any reason, beyond any acceptability. And yet we have a government, a Prime Minister, and members of the government who ignore it, don't call it out, allow it to be propagated in social media, on the national media, as acceptable, is just wrong. The member for Dawson needs to be called out. The member for Hughes needs to be called out. The senators need to be called out, because we need to recognise the harm that they are doing. The Prime Minister was right. We have fantastic medical professionals in infectious diseases, epidemiology, vaccines, and we are very grateful to have them, and very grateful for the way that they have tried their very best to keep us all safe. But to see members of the government and members of other political parties as well doing what they can to destroy our response and not criticise them, not call them out, is just wrong. I should also mention a previous member of this House, Clive Palmer. Shameful what he's doing. He is actually letterboxing and messaging those in some of the most vulnerable electorates in Sydney, trying to undermine our response to this pandemic. Now, every one of us should take that responsibility very, very seriously. I know most members of the government do, but I think it is no longer acceptable to ignore the absolutely disgraceful comments from the member for Dawson, things like masks don't work, Masks make no significant difference to the spread of COVID-19. Lockdowns don't work. Lockdowns don't destroy the virus, but they destroy people's livelihoods. Imagine if you're locked down in Sydney and you're a tradesman or a manual worker and you're hearing this message from a member of Parliament. Imagine what that does to your confidence in the advice, the medical advice you're being given. Now just think about that. All of us in this place have a responsibility to keep people safe. What we do does actually matter. We're not there in intensive care sucking the secretions out of people who have a tube down their throat, breathing with the use of a respirator. We're not there with people who aren't able to visit their grieving mother or father who is terminally ill with COVID-19. But we can make a difference. And we can make a difference by calling out people who actively seek to undermine our response. I'm so grateful for the Leader of the Opposition moving this motion. It's one that everyone in this House should support. And I think it is time that we did all work together and condemn these people. Condemn members of our Parliament that are undermining our response to this great health crisis. Condemn those in the media who are doing the same thing, who are undermining our response. We all have to do that. If we all do it together, that's what will make a difference. I worry about all my colleagues and my relatives who are working at the front line of healthcare because they are putting their lives at risk. And if we can reduce the number of patients in intensive care, if we can reduce that risk for our healthcare workers, that is a very, very good thing. They are doing the job that they signed up to do, to keep us safe. And I mentioned also our police forces who are charged with compliance and making sure people do the right thing. They are doing in Sydney at the moment a fantastic job as well. And I really fully respect the very softly approach that the New South Wales Police have taken to this, and I congratulate them on the job that they are doing. But as leaders in our community, all of us should be doing the right thing, and we should be calling out those, like the member for Dawson and others, who are actively seeking for their own benefit to undermine our response. Thank question is.
Okay, so that is the speech. So there's the speech. Oh, Sue, that's on one of my banned words. I've put the sweary words in as banned. Sorry, not sorry. What did you think of that speech? Hello, Princess Jack. Terminally ill with COVID? Yeah, I don't know what that meant. I guess for some people it is terminal because they won't ever recover. But what did you think of that speech? It's doing the rounds. As I said, he's a medical doctor. And I think his electorate's right in the heart of the west. I think he's in the western suburbs of Sydney, so he's right in the hot spot. But a lot of what he said was right. There's so much misinformation there, and we need to be listening to our medical professionals. So when they brought in about AstraZeneca for 18 to 39-year-olds here, my daughter first of all said, but they've said it's unsafe. So I said to her, why don't you go have a chat to the doctor? So she's going to make a doctor's appointment and go to the doctor and have a discussion with the doctor so that she can work out whether she should get the AstraZeneca. And that's my recommendation to everyone in that range. Yeah. So that was in Parliament today. So that speech is spreading all over the place. So, but and that's what Sky News is having to confront the Senate for, misinformation. So it's very interesting that Sky News has to actually front the Senate because that's what they calling out people. No. That was in response to George Christensen. that speech. He was, so there was something. All right. So what else have we got here? I have a whole pile of stuff here. Whole pile of stuff open. Okay. But I thought he was very, I thought he was very emotional as well because, yeah. So now let's go on to Kristo. So Kristo faces court tomorrow. So for those of you who don't remember, Kristo Langker is the assistant of comedian Friendly Geordies, Jordan Shanks. He got arrested by the Fixated Persons Unit for speaking to John Barilaro under harassment and stalking. So he's been charged for harassment and stalking. So he faces court again tomorrow. And the presiding officer is Magistrate F. McCarron. And she's been a magistrate since 2018. Graham, he is a member in the western suburbs of Sydney. He was a paediatrician for 37 years before entering politics. But you said it, you didn't hear one fact. Of course, it's not. So that's who he was. He was Dr. Mike. What was his name? I closed the window. Not that Dr. Mike. Dr. Mike Freelander. So I do think, though, there has to be some action against people who. I do think that there should be action against people who are bringing out misinformation, because I do think it's dangerous. However, my question is, and this is the question I know that Sky News Australia is asking the Senate, and one of their complaints with YouTube is who says what's true and what's not? Who is the one that says that this is disinformation? So one of the arguments Sky News has used is that the World Health Organization spoke out and said lockdowns don't work. And YouTube has said that that was one of the videos that they banned because for misinformation. And that the flip-flopping of the advice is what's confusing. So who gets to decide what is information and what is misinformation, I guess, is the other question. What is... Hi, Kim. I guess that's my other question that I'm wondering. And that's, as I said, that's one of Sky News Australia's argument with the Senate. And I'm not a fan of Senator Hanson-Young, so whenever she's involved, I'm always a bit skeptical anyway. Well, I know. So, because if you remember if we can take our mind right back to the start, there was things to say masks didn't work, lockdowns didn't work, but now they're saying masks work and lockdowns work. So at some change, there was a shift. At what point did that shift come? And at what point was it deemed that the old information was incorrect? Was there science behind it? Was it, and this is what I'm saying. Oh, is it Mark Latham's old seat? I think he must have taken over from, did he take over from Latham? So that's the question that at what point does misinformation become? Hello, Sonia. Misinformation is deliberately sharing information known to be false. I would agree with that, Short Order Cook. I think there was a lot of confusion from the Who. Oh, who are you? Who? I'm sorry, I had to do that. There was a lot of confusion there, and there's still a lot of confusion coming out from there. But one of the things he did say was about he named India, Brazil, and Indonesia. Indonesia, I think, just had the highest death. They've now overtaken as the most deaths, I think. So that's why I always tell people to speak to their GP. But then, as my GP said to me at one of my visits, they said they get a little bit confused as well because every day something's different, and it's they've got to keep up with it all. But your GP knows what medications you're on. They know what's in they have a fair idea whether there's going to be a reaction. They don't know a lot of stuff, but it's always better to talk to your GP. And the other thing is the Delta variant is unknown. I'm not seeing. I was reading, about the fact that they're just starting to get the early statistics in. Was it Dr. Sutton that said it today that there's really not much evidence out at the moment as to how this Delta variant is. So it's going to be interesting, but I don't know what the solution is. But as I said, George Christensen, Barnaby Joyce, I don't like either of them. I think they're both tools. So one's leaving before the next election. Did anyone see Obama's party? I heard about it. I heard that there was some controversy that he had a party with. Did he have lots of people in it, Sonia? Let me have a look. I heard something. I don't generally watch. At the same time, Clive went. Let's have a look. Obama birthday party. So I think he got a little bit of no social distancing there. I heard it was a bit controversial, wasn't it? Apparently, there was supposed to be 500 guests. Hello, Bo. Whoa, there is some banging. It's really windy here tonight. So this is the Washingtonian. I don't know whether this is a good source, but anyway, let's have a look. We're talking about Obama now. Okay, so it was scaled back. Only 200 people in attendance. Every American, no matter party, should be outraged at this let them eat cake moment, but instead they're simple-minded, just hypocrisy. Watch Obama and his celebrity guests having a great time partying maskless. Can't even talk. I have issues somehow where there's, you know, particularly if it's, because we can't have birthday parties. Only 200. I know 100. Oh, well, I mean, it's just like people being able to leave Australia. So this is the video here. Oh, there was hugging and everything, hey? There was a front hug. There was a front hug. Oh, no. So it only initially had 500 attendees. It was later limited to several hundred fewer friends and family as the more contagious Delta variant spread across the country, only down to 200. Had its own COVID coordinator. Really? All guests were required to take COVID tests. Guests were asked not to post pictures or videos from the party on social media, except that one. So these people, bold-faced names reportedly attended. Chrissy Teigen apparently attended. Party favours. An espresso martini bar. A small station. So it's always, yeah, it's always hard when there's one rule for one type and not for the other. So, because now it's been reported that Brian Houston, it could have been that Brian Houston knew that there was a court date coming and he left the country before it could be served on him. And if that's true, that's disgusting. But this is interesting. This is 7:30 report. Talking about Brian Houston. Journalist fleshes out White House state dinner scoop involving Scott Morrison and Brian Houston. So if you remember when Morrison was going to meet Trump, he wanted to take Houston with him as his spiritual advisor to meet Trump. So the US journalist who broke the story of the Prime Minister Scott Morrison's involvement in trying to secure an invitation to a 2019 White House dinner for Hillsong founder Brian Houston says sources described a sphere of bad news and scandal surrounding the controversial pastor. It's pretty bad when Trump, it's pretty bad when Trump won't meet someone because there's scandal surrounding them, but I don't mean it the way it sounds, or do I? They expressed no suspicions about Brian Houston personally. The Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child SA heard that Frank Houston, Brian's father, had admitted to SAing a child decades earlier. So last week, Brian Houston was charged with failing to report this alleged crime. He's denied wrongdoing and said this in a statement that the charges come to a shock to him. I don't know why, because if you actually read the actual report from the Royal Commission, one of the recommendations was that there would be a police investigation into possible charges. So anyway, so the police investigation conduct began at around the same time as the Prime Minister was preparing for a state visit to the White House in 2019. When Prime Minister arrived at Washington, D.C., the Wall Street Journal's Vivian Samala revealed that the White House rejected repeated requests by Mr. Morrison's office to include Brian Houston on the exclusive guest list to state dinner. My source said, we, the White House, want no part in that, but that's apparently something the Australian Prime Minister was quite pushy about. Well, he could be. He could be. I'm wondering, this is my tinfoil hat theory, my speculation. He was the head of the AOG board at the time. And he was the head of the AOG board at the time, and the AOG board were also aware. I am not going to be surprised if he doesn't throw the board under the bus myself. I won't be surprised if he says they took a vote, decided that we would do nothing, and I, as the chair, took that. And that's my speculation. So Brian Houston is one of the most powerful pastors in the world. His global Hillsong empire boasts 100,000 churchgoers every single weekend. But it makes sense, though, Short Order Cook, doesn't it? Because he was the head of the AOG church at the time. And if you read the Royal Commission documents, or if you see part of that, it is put to him that he was, because he was the sole decision maker at the time. It was his decision for his father to resign as the head of the AOG. So the board decided that Frank Houston should resign. So there was obviously a conversation about what had happened and a decision made. And I personally believe he will throw people under the bus, but that's just me. We'll see whether I'm right. Anyway, so it's part of the evangelical Pentecostal movement. He's become an influential figure within the global Pentecostal movement. Hillsong took 90. I don't know why they need to talk about the tax-free, but anyway, he has long association with Liberal and Labor Party heavyweights. Professor Maddox said that Hillsong's association with the Liberal Party started in the early 2000s with the likes of John Howard and Peter Costello, frequenting ceremonies at the megachurch. That made an effort to cultivate that branch of the Christian family. Spokesman for the Liberal Party said in a statement that the party has no formal relationship with any church. In 2008, a freshly elected parliamentarian, Scott Morrison, went so far as thanking two Hillsong leaders, including Brian Houston, in his maiden speech in Parliament. Mr. Morrison is a member of the Horizon Church, which is also part of the Pentecostal movement. So in July this year, as the Delta variant began racing across Sydney, Brian Houston complained on his Facebook page about the New South Wales government's ban on singing in church. Let's make a stand, he wrote. 7:30 has revealed that one of the people who responded to this call to action was New South Wales Liberal Tanya Davies, who is now Minister for Women. Hi, Pastor Brian, she wrote in a Facebook comment. I raised this issue with Gladys and Brad this morning, and Brad has just issued an exemption to permit 2 singers in Greater Sydney. I sent details to Donna. Please get the word out to as many pastors today as they prepare for tomorrow. Kind regards, Tanya Davies. The following day, Health Minister Brad Hazzard partially lifted restrictions on singing in places of worship to allow 2 singers with some safeguards. A spokeswoman for Mr. Hazzard said in a statement that the exemption was given after his office received thousands of emails, including representatives of the Anglican Church pointing out the inconsistency with the public health law. Ms. Davies confirmed in a statement that she did approach the minister about this. So in 2019, the PM was preparing for his very first state visit to the White House. The state visit included dinner at the Rose Garden with an exclusive list of guests, including quantum physicist Professor Michelle Simmons and celebrity chef Curtis Stone. Sure, this was the guy who went to Hillsong that came through the crowd and healed people with your hand. So he walked past. Okay, you're left standing by it. Wow. So on the American side was fast food mogul Daniel Cathy and outspoken White House counsellor Kellyanne Conway. Vivian Samala's reporting uncovered some extraordinary information about the guest list. I've been talking to a source of mine who is a very key source, Ms. Samala told 7:30. She said that when the White House insider first told her about the Australian Prime Minister's intention to bring Brian Houston along with him to state dinner, she did not know who Mr. Houston was. He, the source, gave me a little bit of backstory to it. He explained that the Prime Minister essentially views this pastor as a mentor. The White House seemed at that point not to want Brian Houston, not necessarily because of any suspicions about Brian Houston in particular, but they felt like he had tentacles that touched scandal that they did not want to own. There's no suggestion that Prime Minister was aware of the police investigation into Mr. Houston at the time. The media in Australia reportedly extensively about Ms. Salamet's revelations. The Prime Minister at the time dismissed the claims as gossip and later referred to them as a minor issue. We all knew that that was one of the jokes, was that, you know, that ScoMo couldn't even get you know, he had so much power he couldn't get Houston on the guest list, you know. But it seems like the White House didn't want to touch him because they thought there was scandal involved. That's really interesting, isn't it? It was not 5 minutes later, in March the following year, that the PM finally confirmed his intentions to bring Brian Houston along with him to the White House. In an interview, he told 2GB's Ben Fordham, "We put forward a list of names that include Brian, but not everyone whose name was put forward were invited." So Miss Salamar told 730 that she always had been confident in the accuracy of her reporting. However, she said she was intrigued by the Prime Minister's initial deflection attempts. "It suggests we've hit a nerve with this issue," she said. "The fact that he was so protective and sort of defensive of that relationship for so long raised a lot of questions." In a statement, Brian Houston said the police charge against him had come as a shock. He said that he vehemently professes his innocence and will defend the charges. I'm very interested about that because he actually confessed in the Royal Commission that he knew and did nothing. "I welcome the opportunity to set the record straight," he said in a statement. Mr. Houston is expected to appear in Downing Street Centre local court in October. A spokesperson for the Prime Minister told 730 in a statement that the charges against Brian Houston is a police matter and as such it is inappropriate to comment on. In regards to state didn't invite, the statement said that the Prime Minister does not want comment on decisions of a foreign government. Now, here's the thing. So this story has come up again. A few months ago, there was links with QAnon with the Prime Minister. Now there's this. So there's questions being asked about how he got to go out, how he got to leave the country. Not once, but twice. And not only that, he's been able to come and go. So I find that to be baffling. Just seeing where I can find about him leaving the country. Oh, this is Sky News. I apologise. It's the only one I can find. I'm not really a Sky News person, as you know. But they were granted a travel exemption. People cannot get into the country. People cannot leave the country to go overseas to tend to sick family members. But this was July 27. And it's really funny that they left at the end of July and as the investigation was rounding up. Now, I don't want to draw any conclusions, but I'm highly suspicious of timing. I'm highly suspicious of the timing of their departure. How can he have left the country a week before police are filing summons? Does someone smell a rat? So it says, Hillsong pastors Brian and Bron have hosted several church events in Monterrey, Mexico, after successfully obtaining a travel permit to leave Australia in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic. For most of us, we can't leave Australia. We can't leave Australia. Now, they've said you can leave Australia to conduct business, but they can't guarantee that you'll get back in. So it says Hillsong founders Brian and Bobby Houston have been granted an exemption to leave the country amid Australia's fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, despite strict travel limitations. They were pictured participating and leading in a worship service at Hillsong congregation in Mexico last week. The Hillsong spokesperson confirmed the megachurch leaders had obtained a travel exemption under the category of leaving the country for more than 3 months. Funny that. Their application was done online in the usual manner, and like many people, they were granted an exemption as they were required in the US and were staying longer than 3 months. As global senior pastors of a church with locations across the world, Pastors Brian and Bobby spend several months each year based in the US, which is the location of Hillsong's global office and Hillsong channel. The Hillsong Ontario branch promoted the couple's visit to the church, announcing they would arrive on July 25. As I say, I don't want to draw conclusions, but I find it highly suspicious. In a series of posts on Instagram, and in fact, if it was more than 3 months, July, August, September, October, which means technically he's going to be away when he's supposed to face court. Is that also suspicious? In a series of posts on Instagram, the church celebrated Mr. Houston's teaching and encouraged members of the congregation to invite fellow worshippers. We're very excited to have our global pastors for the first time. Another post made 2 days later said we have Sunday ahead of us. There he is. New Mexico. The Hillsong spokesperson said that the Houstons would do work in the United States connected with our leadership and Hillsong music. They applied for travel as per government guidelines and adhered to all government direction. Under Australian COVID-19 travel restrictions, which were first imposed in March 2020, citizens and permanent residents can only leave the country if they've been granted an exemption by the Australian Border Force. An exemption may be obtained under the following reasons. So let's see whether we think that it's whether they should get it. Travel is part of the COVID-19 response, providing aid. Travel is for your business or employer. Travel is in the national interest. Travel to receive urgent medical treatment, not available in transport. Traveling for a compelling reason for at least 3 months. Traveling on compelling or compassionate grounds. Short order cook, yes, it's the timing. It's the timing. So they're saying it was for a compelling reason for at least 3 months. You can't tell me that they couldn't have done a live stream in Sydney or wherever and have it broadcast in Mexico or whatever, and they couldn't have conducted it over Zoom. You can't tell me that couldn't happen. They're conducting world meetings over Zoom. So that's their argument. So there's lots of people very, very angry that he got out of the country. The other thing is, apparently, he's saying that he's going to come back. So I'll be interested to see whether they're going to make him I've read a few articles that they left earlier and then they came back. So this is news.com.au on it. They've got a few things that, so whoops, it's just gone. Yeah, so his father died in 2004. See, they're saying that they've been living in the US since earlier this year, having been granted an exemption. Another article said that they've been backwards and forwards, and so I don't know. But I know that they only went back just before the end of July. Hillsong said in a statement it was disappointed that the pastor had been charged. We asked that he be afforded the presumption of innocence and due process, as is his right. He has advised us he will defend this and looks forward to clearing his name. Given this matter is now before the courts, neither Pastor Brian or Hillsong Church will make any further statements. We thank all who are part of the church for their support and prayers at this time. Now it says, after reviewing a brief of evidence from detectives, the Office of Director of the Public Prosecutions earlier this week provided advice to police about the case. Now this is the thing. Brian Houston told the Royal Commission into Institutional Responses to Child SA that his father had confessed in 1999 to the abuse, but he had not informed the police. He denied any wrongdoing, telling the Royal Commission he thought the then adult victim was old enough in 1999 to have made up his own mind about whether he wanted to report the matter to police. That was what he said. And his father was sacked by the church in 2000. And he was the president. See, Brian was the president of the AOG at the time of his father's admission. He sacked him and the board. So a witness came forward. So they've contacted the Attorney General's office to ask if Mr. Houston can be extradited to Australia to face charges. Because it doesn't look like, he says he's come back, but it depends when he gets a flight. Anyway, so that's what he actually said to the Royal Commission, that he thought that when it came out that he thought the victim was old enough to report it to police, and so he didn't need to do it. That's where that's come from. He didn't think that that was his job. He just sacked his father. So that's... And obviously the government has, well, the law says differently. The law has said you have a duty, and now church leaders are mandated reporters. There's no excuse. In fact, I'll tell you a story. One of the children that I teach had spoken to me about something that was happening at home, and I had to go to the minister and say, this is what's happening. I'm not sure how we handle it. She spoke to the mother. The mother was a bit shocked, but gave her phone number and said, if you need it, call me. And the mother called. It's a DV situation now. And there's been processes put into place, but we had to, we've had to fill in all sorts of documentation because of what was revealed by a child. I've had to do that process. It's horrifying, but you do what you have to do to protect the child. Well, that's right. He had a duty of care, but anyway, we'll see what happens. I mean, I have no doubt that they're going to bring up his testimony in the Royal Commission. It'll be interesting to see how he talks his way out of that. So let's get on to, we'll talk about our favourite YouTuber for a little bit, and then, yeah, but it can't be now. There's actually really now rules in place where even in the Catholic Church now, they have to. It was one of the things that came, again, all of this, there's been a whole lot of changes that have occurred from this Royal Commission that was held, and all of these stories and stuff that nobody knew had happened. And now even priests have to report certain things. Ministers of religion are now mandated reporters. So, as are teachers. So, there's a whole lot of people that now have to report. I would agree, Graham. I think it was a cover-up. I believe it was a cover-up. Look, it was. I think, I know that he got I know he got a lot of flack when he faced the Royal Commission at the time, because he said that, he thought that as an adult, the victim should have to pay. And I also believe it was revealed at the Royal Commission that they tried to give him, or they did pay him, some compensation. Like they tried to pay the victim hush money or something. I'll have to read, because it's all in the Royal Commission report. And I actually did sit and read it one day, and it was ghastly. So let's go something a little bit more lighthearted. You think children need to be distanced from them? Distance from who? Ministers of religion? The thing is, there are bad people in every form of society. There are teachers that do the wrong things, but that doesn't mean that every teacher's bad. There are medical professionals that do the wrong thing. That doesn't make them all bad. There are ministers of religion who do bad things. That doesn't make them all bad. I think we have to be really, really careful in putting everybody in a box. That would be my only thing. You can't put everybody, say that all teachers are bad. There are bad police officers, but you can't say that all police officers are bad. People, by nature, tend to be, want to look after themselves. So, and they will look after yourself. But I'm saying I think he's going to throw the board under the bus. That's my feeling with what I understand of the situation and what came out at the Royal Commission. So my only thing is, don't think of all ministers of religions or pastors as bad, because there are a few bad apples. You wouldn't trust the Hillsong guy with your beanie babies. But the thing is, I was on a Facebook page, a Christian Facebook page, and people were crying over it. And they went, "Oh no, what have they?" And I'm going, the guy broke the law. What part of the guy broke the law? If he had murdered somebody. So this is the thing. Christianity is all about repentance, rebirth, regeneration, and being able to start again. That doesn't mean that there is not a consequence to your action. You can be forgiven for doing something. However, there is a consequence to the action. You still have to face the consequence for what you've done. That is part of being responsible. Because you have the rules of God, but you've also got the rules of man. You still have to live within the rules of God, man, live in the rules of God. So if you get pulled over for speeding, you can't say, "Oh, you can't give me a ticket because I'm a Christian." No, you broke the rules of the land. You have to have the consequence. You pay the fine. You can ask for forgiveness, and you can start again. You say to the police officer, "I'm really sorry. I shouldn't have done it. Forgiveness," but you still have to pay the fine. You're not going to get out of the fine. There are people whose intent and purpose is to choose a vocation to fulfill purpose on the. Yes, this happens in many careers. Yes, bank robbers. Some bank robbers work in banks. Some auto thefts. They work in car yards. Actually, we're talking about car yards. We're going to talk about a car yard in a minute. So there is still a consequence to your action. Is it Newton's law that every action has an equal and opposite reaction? So one of Newton's laws. So yeah, I did remember something from physics. So everything that we do has a consequence. The consequence is either going to be good or it's going to be bad. This was the... you agree about to the consequence but not the forgiveness. That's fine. And that's where, yeah, and we can have that difference. So I remember having that discussion with my son. You are old enough to choose. Newton's third law, is it? If you choose to do this, this is what's going to happen. If you choose to do this, this is what's going to happen. Now you choose which way you want to go. Anyway, so that's all I'll say on that. So he may, for all intents and purposes, say that he's gone to God and sought forgiveness and God's forgiven him. But at the end of the day, he still has to face the fact that he broke the law, and there's consequences to that. So that's what I'll say on that. And it's interesting because that's why church services are generally packed in prison. There's lots of prisoners because they want to know that, they can start again. So here's Instagram. This might make you angry. I apologize. Jill and Derek Dillard traveled to Oregon. I reported last week that I believed they would meet up with Audrey and Jeremy Roloff. They met with Tori and Zach days before. Jill follows Audrey and has posted about Audrey's books in the past. How does she know who she follows? My instincts are rarely wrong. Now the question is, are they going to collaborate on a marriage book? It could be all about the birds and the bees, since the Dillards love to talk about getting jiggy with it. The book titled Intentional Intimacy, Create the Most Intentional Servant-Heart Front-Hugging in Marriage. Is there a reason why they shouldn't have hung out together unless I recently missed something? I thought they were friends. And she says, no reason. I didn't say that. So that's the name that she said in the book. They also met up with Zach and Tori. I know. I don't think they talk about their sex life any more than your average person who isn't ashamed or weirded out by it. And she says, I think you missed the joke. She said, I definitely did. No problem. She's joking around. I guess I missed that too. So there you go. Why is she fascinated with their bedroom behaviours? All right, talking about car lots. Do you remember when Josh got arrested and he said that he had somebody working with him and he thought that it was them that accessed the dark web? Okay, do you remember that? And she said there's no way that this was all made up. Watch this. According to a search warrant affidavit for Josh Duggar's car lot, an undercover HSI made contact with Josh and someone named Randy. Randy exists. This was to determine if Josh was indeed at this location, and if there were electronics there that could download CSAM. Anyone know who Randy is? Here's the thing. She denied the existence of Randy. Could Josh Duggar actually have been telling the truth? Could it have been Randy all along? I don't know. I really don't know. But she was so adamant that he was making up this third person. And here it is, and she's put this. On November 1, 2019, the HSI task force officer acting in an undercover capacity arrived at the wholesale motor cars located at the subject premises and entered the business office to inquire about potentially purchasing a used car from the dealership. Upon entering the office, the undercover HSI task force officer was met by an unknown employee who identified himself as Randy and another employee who identified himself as Josh. The HSI task force officer was able to positively identify Josh as being Duggar and further witnessed him to retrieve a believed Apple iPhone from his person with an unknown modelled laptop located on the desk. Verbal arrangements were made to possibly purchase a vehicle from the dealership at a later date. At the conclusion, the HSI task force officer departed the scene. Here's my question. She categorically denied that there was another person, right? So here is the thing. Could it have been Randy all along? She says, Can't they pull surveillance tape from the undercover operator, or is that too late? Now, they did confirm that it was his same as his bank account numbers, but he could have allowed, or the password or something was the same as his bank account details, but could he have told the employee? I'm just speculating. I mean, this is tinfoil hat. This is tinfoil hat stuff again, right? But what if Josh was telling the truth all the time and it was Randy? Is Miss Katie Joy going to apologise to Josh? If it is, let's just say it's proven it's Randy and it's not Josh, and Josh was actually innocent. Is she going to make an apology for all the things that she said about him? Because let's just say she said some horrible things about him. And she denied the existence of Randy. She was saying that it was all made up. What is Randy? Randy is the employee. So one of the things that Josh had said is that it was probably his employees that had set up this dark web stuff. Hey, I'm not saying that Josh is I'm not saying that Josh is innocent here. I'm just saying that when it came out that he was saying it was somebody else, she was denying it. Well, that's the other question. Why didn't they charge Randy? So here's the thing. Randy, the other person, now exists according to this evidence. You don't believe? Yeah. So you don't even believe that? So I'm just tossing speculation out here. But Josh had said that there was an employee and it was probably his stuff. But Katie always said that he was lying about that, but he was truthful. We've got this Randy. Anyway, I'm just saying that Randy exists. I still think Josh is. I'm still thinking Josh is guilty, but I'm just going. What if? I'm saying, what if? What if she was totally wrong and Josh was absolutely innocent? Would she apologise? So it says, in one of the car old reviews, it says, super happy with Josh and Randall. Very nice and helpful. Found exactly what we wanted. Thanks, guys. Assume Randy is Randall. Now, somebody else said, that there was another, there was also that there were two other employees there. So maybe there was a Randy and a Randall. Well, that's what I think is. Oh, he will try to blame, but I'm just talking about the fact that Katie Joy has been adamant that he was lying the whole time. And my whole point is that their search warrant shows that there was another person at the car lot. So not everything that he has said has been untruthful. So then she's done this. This is the thoughts in my brain most days when I'm working. It truly amazes me how many of the people I cover use Christianity as a shield to con the public. The truth always reveals itself. Fake Christians using God to cover up their bad behavior. Just another day in the news. Fake Christians might think they've fooled everyone, but the truth is always revealed. I don't know what that is. All right, so let's look at Twitter. Yeah. Oh, I'm just saying, what if it's discovered that it is Randy and Josh, by some mere miracle, is actually innocent? She would have to eat humble pie. And Josh would actually have a big defamation lawsuit against her. Could you imagine? Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that too, Cal. Yeah, well, the thing is, Princess Jax, we're all flawed. You're talking at a very flawed Christian here, because I don't do everything right myself. I'm flawed. And I just, you know, and I just have to just, so yeah, I'm flawed. I'm far from perfect. Boy. Oh, the stories my mother could tell you. I did tell my mum that you wanted to, that you wanted her on stream. She said she doesn't, I couldn't afford her. All right, so this is Jill Duggar's separate outings with Toria and Audrey. I don't know that one. Then she's got John Gosling. So last night, remember somebody said, or maybe John Gosling and Colleen had split up. Well, now, funnily, she must have watched the stream. Hello, Katie Joy, because now she reported that they broke up. She was slamming him yesterday for not supporting her and for going out and partying, and it just happens that it's likely that they're broken up. Then she says, some people are literally so dense and idiotic. There is no amount of explaining to them. They create conspiracies that just don't even exist. People that believe in conspiracy theories cannot be rationalized with. It's best to ignore them. Well, I do. I ignore it for the most part. Way I see it, public celebrities like the Christensen get a lot of hate and lies on the daily. Lies with no validity get ignored. If he is this bothered by things you've said, then there must be some truth in them, or he'll ignore you like the rest. Period. He's not mad at me. He's mad at his daughter, I believe. And she said, bingo. I just, oh, is that Unirock again? Just, I don't know. He was weird. Then she's done Ginger Duggar. So she's been on the Duggar train today. Then she's got, this is her fake Christians post. And then this guy says, I find it with all religions. This woman says, I find it with all religions. We'll say. Right, so then we get to this Twitter. This one's got some good stuff. This one's got some good stuff on it. Because she criticizes a journalist for their reporting. So here we go. Days like today, the spin, spin, spin. So wild to me, the S show I am watching and living. I don't know what she's talking about. Some people are so literally dense. So that's this one. Don't know why she has to keep posting on both Twitter accounts. Same one. Same person's responded to the same one twice. All right. So my favorite thing when someone says, I don't know the whole story or care, but here is my opinion. Stop being so lazy in your research and actually put some effort to know the story before you report. Oh, sorry about that, Cal. Exactly this. That's the irony in those that criticize you for actually doing research about things while they make assumptions and leave out huge parts of the story to fit what they're saying. No, Joey Day. That's what she does. So she's telling people about she's telling people to stop being lazy and do their research before you start reporting on things. Then she says, though, so Ginger Duggar's husband slams Jim Bob Duggar, admit you're wrong. Fake Christians. Now, this is the one this one is funny. Trisha Paytas said the title of the BuzzFeed article, Dope Off Trisha Paytas fitting. I think BuzzFeed is trash, but the lovely independent photographer who took the photos was so wonderful. I'm posting because I look hot in them. And then the author wrote, well, at least one of us got a free photo shoot out of it, and the other one had to spend a week making sure their parents didn't put their address on Facebook again, just in case they get doxxed. Guess who's who? Katie Joy. I've just lost my spot. It's down here. Hang on. Katie Joy writes, your article comes off super vindictive and unprofessional. No journalist with ethics would put out a piece and make it about them. Your piece was so filled with anger that the end result was a petty hit piece, filled with odd jealousy about what she had accumulated. Now, what was really interesting is that if you click on this link, Kathy Griffith and a whole lot of other Hollywood celebrities congratulated the journalist for writing a good article. But Katie Joy says it was a trash piece. She had a right to speak on herself, considering she literally talked about racist harassment, and the post you're quote tweeting is standing up for herself to someone calling her a dirty rat because her parents could come in harm's way of doxing that happened. Maybe she should have done her research then, before giving Gabby a platform, just to lie, manipulate, and victimize people some more with no boundaries and fact-checking. This is the internet. People can criticize. This is the most poor excuse I've read in relation to white women dealing out critics. Good cause isn't an excuse. It is the truth. You can't expect backlash if you put out a false narrative and give platform to an abuser to further victimize people. Oh, wait, that part doesn't fit your narrative, right? Yes, false narrative. Have you read the whole article about what we're talking about? Because this started with her last article. And Gabby, maybe look into things because you're not coming across smart. And if you think what this journalist did with regards to these two articles is okay, then you are no better than Trisha. She was very empathetic, asking her about if she did quit from her news because she can't get pregnant, and Hilia got pregnant. No, seriously, very professional and empathetic. So she's getting, thank you very much, Cal, very much appreciated. So if I click on this here, didn't say. I saw that, I did see that Kathy Griffith had actually said it was a really good article. So anyway, so Katie Joy didn't like it. She's the journalist. She's the journalistic measure. In my opinion, if she didn't like it, it was probably a good piece. Maybe there wasn't enough pictures. Oops, I shouldn't have said that out loud. It wasn't a picture book. Okay, I'm going to show you something else. So we're going to watch one of Erin Costello's videos. And again, I did ask her if I could use it. I messaged her because I really liked it. And and it talks about the record label of Toad. It talks about why Todd Chrisley talked about the fact that it was a white supremacist group. And it talks about there is several clips together of Katie Joy giving the same story, and we know how facts change. Well, yeah, I think so. I'm going to play it. As I said, she gave me permission to play it, but I will stop it, and it's 40 minutes, so the whole thing's rather long. And I'll put her I'll put it in the chat so you can actually watch it again uninterrupted, because I will stop it. But as I said, this is a really good video, and I think it was very fair and balanced because she talks about we were talking about the Nordic history and all of that. So she goes through all of that. Cool. Oh, thank you, Cal. Look, as I said, I'm not perfect. Hey, I'm okay for a Christian, right? Look, if all I do is give you a different perspective of Christians, I like to say that I'm real. I'm not perfect. I'm real. I'm real. Oh, thank you, Princess Jax. All right, so let's look at this. This, as I said, was fascinating.
Just recently, Todd Chrisley announced his plans or his intent to sue without a crystal ball. Now, in one of these podcasts in which he was talking and discussing his plans for suing without a crystal ball, he made reference to Katie and her husband associating with white supremacists. Now, for those who are unaware of what it is Todd Chrisley was talking about, please allow me to refresh your memory, allow me to inform you of the series of events that took place over the past year and a half that led a lot of people to wonder if there are some ties there. Now, I'm not saying that they're racist. I'm just saying I don't know if they are.
So, all right, so we're going to have a look. So I've just posted okay, see, people suck. People suck. That's her. All right. I would say, like, they could be insensitive at times. I think most of us, I'm speaking as a white woman, I think I'm insensitive at times because I'm unintentionally insensitive. I think that's what it is. You don't mean to be, but you can be.
Okay, now I'm going to present all of these to you in chronological order, in the order in which they happened. On August 8, 2019, Katie Joy had this to say about the Kardashians.
And these girls' butts so gross. And then, and I'm just going to say it, and I know I'm a white girl, but I have plenty of girlfriends that are African-American. I really think that these women are trashy as hell because they want the aesthetic.
I tell you, her old streams are going to come back to bite her. So she's saying white women with big butts dating black men are trashy as hell.
Of a black woman, they want to date the black men. It's just, all they do is cultural appropriation. It's gross. So they want the body, they want the men, but then they want the benefits of being white. I don't like it.
Okay, next we have a series of videos and posts by Katie regarding George Floyd's murder. These all take place from about May 25th to the first couple days in June of 2020. The first screenshot shows someone asking Katie, hey, have you thought of maybe covering?
This one really bothered. I tell you, there are some in here that really did bother me. Yeah, this one really bothered me. Yeah. And it's interesting to see how she'll say something to one person and then behave so differently. So this is interesting. Yeah.
The story about George.
And I think the other thing I think that's the problem is that Toad knows that certain symbols, for example, bring reactions to certain people. So a lot of the symbols that were used by the Nazis. However, he says, I don't care because this is my heritage. But it can be your heritage and you can still understand that it's insensitive and it's going to hurt people. Oh, it is. It's going to get ugly, Kim. This is fascinating. Yes, that's right. For gender, and you have a bigger problem. Yeah. And it seems to be that he chooses the ones deliberately that were famous for Nazis as that bit to rile people up. And if you look at when she talks about the sect that he's joined, it's German based. So guess what symbols they're going to be using? As I said, I just find it's insensitive. And
Floyd and the spread of riots, just wondering, hope you and your family are well. To which Katie replies, hey there, I live in Minnesota. As much as I'm outraged, I honestly don't think I will. I hate it happened so much. You have no idea. The cops here are effing terrible to black men. But my energy is really best served in the places I'm most passionate, which right now is sticking up for children with disabilities. The next screenshot shows Katie saying, my heart is broken in a million pieces. George Floyd was senselessly murdered by my hometown Minneapolis police officers over Memorial Day weekend. I sat in horror watching the video footage of him begging officers to help him because he couldn't breathe. Officers sat there arrogantly and did not stop the officer from pinning him down by his neck. This incident took me back to only a few years ago when Philando Castile was senselessly murdered by police in St. Anthony, where I grew up, for a traffic violation. Something is so seriously wrong with our police officers here. Philando Castile's murder, Geronimo
Remember, she said she wasn't going to say anything on it, and then here we go.
Yanez walked free. It's safe to say the lack of justice for Philando's death left a deep mark on my city's heart and soul. When we fail to protect our citizens, then allow rogue cops to walk free, people don't forget. This reaction by Minneapolis should not shock anyone. Philando did not get justice. Minneapolis will be damned that George Floyd doesn't receive justice. Despite that anger, which I fully understand. The next screenshot says, my husband's mother was one half Native American. Not sure how it's his great ancestors. Also, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm grieving with you. I am scared for you. But hurting more innocent people is not the answer. The following screenshot says, from Todd, oh, please, don't get confused about what Katie is saying. We hurt for what is being done to young black men by white cops. We completely understand where this anger and outrage is coming from. I don't condone rioting either, but I understand and empathize with the frustrations. What you failed to see in this post is that we both have family who are living right in the heart of all of this. We have a right to be concerned about buildings and hospitals being burned down and also feel compassion toward victims like George Floyd and others. And for your information, you don't need to educate my wife on the fact this country was stolen. She's with someone who's Native American blood. The following screenshot is from Todd again. This time he says, no, I won't tell Katie. You can tell her yourself. I'm sorry you feel this way. I understand your hurt. Therefore, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to apologize or feel guilty about my own heritage. But as I stated before, I empathize with what you have to go through every single day in this country. People get mad at me all the time for spelling it like Amerikka, but I don't give a shit. Anyway, please understand.
So, America with triple K in it, KKK, and he says he doesn't care, and he doesn't care. That's the problem that I have. America with a triple K in it, the KKK. Yeah, all right. Is that a landmine, Will? So he says, before I started, I emphasize with you what you have gone through every single day in this country. People get mad at me for spelling it like Amerikka. But I don't care. Yeah. This is what people are upset about, because they don't care.
We have a right to be concerned about buildings and hospitals being burned down and also feel compassion toward victims like George Floyd and others. And for your information, you don't need to educate my wife on the fact this country was stolen. She's with someone who's Native American blood. The following screenshot is from Todd again. This time he says, no, I won't tell Katie. You can tell her yourself. I'm sorry you feel this way. I understand your hurt. Therefore, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to apologize or feel guilty about my own heritage. But as I stated before, I empathize with what you have to go through every single day in this country. People get mad at me all the time for spelling it like Amerikka, but I don't give a shit. Anyway, please understand that we are not your enemy. We are an ally. Have a nice day. And again, next, we have Todd saying...
So that was Todd. Hi, the Fox.
Please tell me where I said that I support rioting, followed by, don't question my motives. You don't know me. You and everybody else can believe whatever it is that you want to believe about what I said. Okay, next we have Chrissy Teigen saying, in celebration of whatever the fuck MAGA night is, I am committed to donating $100,000 to the bailouts of protesters across the country. Katie says, you are awful. Do not encourage the rioting and looting. Someone else says, she's not inviting anything. She's supporting the hundreds of people who've been arrested the last few days. She chose to say something publicly because apparently tonight is MAGA night, whatever that is. Have you missed the news? Minneapolis and St. Paul have been set on fire for 4 nights. That's not funny. And bailing people out isn't bailing out peaceful protesters. And lastly, we have Katie saying, Derek Chauvin, you should be charged for the devastation to my city. This is your fault. Someone else says, I thought he was. He was charged with third-degree murder earlier today, to which Katie says, "My city is on fire!"
I shouldn't laugh, but you know where all this is going, right? Sorry, Erin, for stopping it there.
Okay, so the following are some video clips I pulled from a video that I found in the subreddit, WOACB. I just want to thank the moderators of this subreddit real quick for letting me use this in the video. Thank you.
I'm disgusted at the 3 other officers that stood there. I'm heartbroken for their families. I'm heartbroken for their children. I am heartbroken for their communities. I am heartbroken for every single person. I'll never forget his face in that shirt. I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget it. And now this is my city. Everyone is so upset. And then we have people that have come from out of town by the hundreds.
Hang on. I need to just go back that. She says, we've got people coming out of town by the hundreds. Let me just go back.
I'll never forget his face in that shirt. I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget it. And now this is my city. Everyone is so upset. And then
Go out.
we have people that have come from out of town.
So it says, so she's saying there's people that come out of town, but it says the officials were questioned about their claims after journalists went to look at jail records and found that the overwhelming majority of people arrested in connection to the unrest in Minneapolis had Minnesota addresses. NBC Affiliate found that 36 cases, 86% had Minnesota addresses. Fox 9, meanwhile, has a slightly different number, but it tells the same story. Of the 45 people arrested, 38 had Minnesota addresses, or 84%. You know what we were talking about, misinformation? Listen to what she says again.
This is my city. Everyone is so upset. And then we have people.
So people said, Minnesota said those arrested were from out of state. Records suggest this isn't true. So she's.
People that have come from out of town by the hundreds, driven into our city. And this is what the city looks like. It's just so sad.
In fact, it was locals.
Like, they don't really know what's going on right now. They don't really know, like, who's done what.
Next, we have Katie talking about how Keith Ellison was appointed yesterday and how he's the first Muslim to be elected.
Oh, this is funny. Like, I shouldn't laugh, but I had to laugh. All right?
To office and to be sworn in on the Torah.
They appointed Keith Ellison yesterday, which is good. Keith Ellison is, interestingly, he was one of the very first Muslim in the House of Representatives, and he was one of the very first to be elected, and then also like take his oath on the Torah.
Torah? Hello, Mimo. Yes. So she said the Torah. And we know that the Muslims have the Quran and the Jews have the Torah. Just so we'll just watch that again.
Today, which is good. Keith Ellison is, interestingly, he was one of the very first Muslim in the House of Representatives, and he was one of the very first to be elected, and then also like take his oath on the Torah. He's also a person of color.
So on June 20th, 2020, Katie's husband, Todd, his band, released their new album. His band, Canning Dicks. Okay, fine, Canistairs. They released their new album. And upon doing so, they were then confronted with some questions about why they were on a new label. And after releasing their new album, they then released a video. And in their official premiere video there, Todd and his band were using these symbols they called runes, R-U-N-E-S. And apparently these same design of runes have been used by some white supremacists or racist groups, all in all. And as a result, there are a lot of people who, upon seeing these images, are then upset and affected by this. But rather than try and listen to this and accept the fact that these images that you are now helping to put out into the world even further are causing harm, rather than try and take some of that in and try and understand and try to make a better decision, they decide to double down.
See, and this is the thing, because they just attack the people that are offended rather than showing empathy towards the people that are offended, knowing that they were used as symbols of hate, whether you like it or not. They were used for hate. You can't change that.
Let's first check out the video and take a look at these ruins.
What's the stone?
The first screenshot here explains how the National Socialist Movement, the NSM, have adopted this same design as a legacy logo. And the same design is also known as a rune. The next screenshot here explains how the Othala rune pictured here, which is also part of the runic alphabet system, has also been used throughout most of Europe in the 20th century as a symbol for Nazism. And this following screenshot is a picture of a tweet by Without a Crystal Ball.
Could you mute the music? Oh, I know that music you can't erase, can you?
In this tweet, she says, the KKK took the Christian cross as their symbol and used to for hate. Does this mean we accuse people who wear crosses of being white supremacists? No. Runes are thousands of years old and have innocent meanings. The only rune that should never be shared is the swastika. And this last screenshot shows yet another tweet from Without a Crystal Ball. She responds to someone who says neo-Nazis tried to destroy everything. They already ruined the original meaning of the swastika. Can they please stay away from Norse history? To which Without a Crystal Ball replies, I know it's awful. They steal historical runes with beautiful meanings and turn them into hate.
It has a brand new label, which is amazing. They ditched their old label because they got involved and started signing all of these bands that were terribly.
Next, we have some.
So now we're getting into the good stuff, because you have to bear some of this stuff in mind as we get to the end, and it gets fascinating.
Instagram posts. First, we have by Without a Crystal Ball. Recently, people have been accusing my husband of being a white supremacist because he shared pre-Christian alphabet runes used by the Norse/Viking people thousands of years ago. My husband is deeply interested in his ancestral background as a man with Scandinavian and Native American lineage. Yes, that's right. My husband is also part Ojibwe, a native tribe of the North Americans slaughtered by explorers and a community that is still struggling with oppression today. This is a statement months ago denouncing hate. Not all heathens are white supremacists. That's akin to saying all white people are racist. We know it's not true. Thank you. Next, we have by Canning Dix. Thank you for sharing this. We as a band recently raised over $400 and donated it to the American Indian Cultural Center in Minneapolis, which burned down during the recent riots. I challenge anyone to say with a serious face that a white supremacist would raise money for Native Americans, a group of people who have been under the thumb of the white man since this country was founded. It's truly a shame that this stuff even needs to be said, but such is life in the age of cancel culture and people's lack of desire for any sort of nuanced conversation. Without a Crystal Ball says, we know we are not racist. It's sad that hate groups will steal ancient symbols to promote hate. Canning Dix says, and we will fight to keep our symbols and not allow hate groups to misappropriate them. Next, we have Canning Dix saying, it all stems from my use of the Algar Futhark runes. Uneducated people see that and they jump to conclusions because some knuckle-dragging Odinists here in America have misappropriated the Othala runes to push their hatred. Canning Dix then says, my grandfather on my mom's side was 100% Ojibwa. Next, Canning Dick says, after that long-ass diatribe, you still don't understand the point being behind all of this. You seem to want to insert your opinions on things without actually knowing exactly what you're talking about. Now, that last statement may have sounded harsh, but I implore you, if you want to try to talk intelligently on this subject, please educate yourself first. There is absolutely nothing racist about the elder Futhark runes. Zero. It's an ancient letter system used by pre-Christian Germanic Scandinavian peoples before the Christians came to that part of the world and converted everyone. As a Norse heathen, I use the runes all the time. They mean a great deal to me. The notion that my use of the Othala rune in the video to tell a story has offended someone is simply not a possibility.
See, he's saying that how dare anyone get offended? She's talking about education and she doesn't know what religion. Who are you talking about? You're talking about Katie Joy, or are you talking about the person talking?
Because it's not a racist symbol or a symbol of hate. Us inclusive heathens fight this shit every day. Do not fault us for the fact that certain far-right types have misappropriated some of the runes in order to push their hate. Canning Dix then says, look, I'm tired of playing this game of whack-a-mole. I guess you are free to believe whatever the hell you want to believe. Mind you, it's based on one post. You said it yourself that you didn't even know about me until she just posted this. It's really a shame that you are ready to make such snap judgments against people having not knowing the full extent of someone's heart or life experiences. Kind of seems like...
Well, that's the thing. And the impression that I'm getting is that I seem to get the impression that he knows it offends people, but he just doesn't care. And that's what I think is most disappointing.
Like the same deplorable behavior that the white supremacists use. Yes. And finally, this last screenshot shows Canning Dix as saying, here's the thing that you are failing to understand, though. This whole conversation stems from some people asserting that I'm a Nazi because I use some imagery of an elder Futhark rune in my video. Those runes do not have any racist connotation whatsoever. The only reason people jump to this conclusion is there are some white power groups out there who have misappropriated these runes to push their hateful agenda. So that brings us to this. Should I, as a Norse heathen who happens to be inclusive, should I be forced to not do rune work because some idiots are using them for inexcusable reasons? Also, should I bow to the idea that something that is very important part of my culture should just be erased because somebody else wants to attach a baseless accusation of hatred to it? Everyone should be able to celebrate their own cultures and histories. Next, we have Katie's little slip of the tongue here from July 2020 when...
Oh, this is a good one. So... Can you see what's being? I mean, this is their own words. This isn't anybody putting words in there. It was just, well, but can you see why? It's their own words. Their own words are coming back to bite them. And anyway, so let's have a look at this next bit because this is funny.
She said that Kanye was not at his ranch so much as he was at his plantation.
So Kanye is maybe more down, maybe more hanging out, maybe more subdued today. I don't really know. Justin Bieber was at his the plantation, was at the compound or he has a ranch. At the ranch, Justin Bieber was at the ranch, and he had been like traveling cross country with Haley. Sella, I said plantation thinking ranch. Sorry about that. Okay.
That was a bit of a slip.
Thinking about all the Harriet Tubman stuff that Mr. Kanye said this week.
Whoopsies.
Okay, so the following screenshots and video clips are from January 2021, when Katie and her husband were once again kind of forced to answer questions about why they were once signed with the racist label to begin with and why they are now with a new label.
is accusing my husband of signing a record deal with a company or with a record.
She always wears a Snoopy whenever she's going to go on a rant about race or talk about her husband not being racist. She wears the Snoopy shirt. It's funny. It's always the Snoopy shirt. Well, I've seen some video today of what she said about Lindsay on a couple of streams, and she's in a bit of trouble, I think. It's all there for everybody to see.
Label that has white supremacy ties. My husband did not sign with a record label that had white supremacists on it. They were not active with that label when this specific band was signed, and as soon as my husband's band found out that they signed a band that had ties to white nationalism, they terminated their contract. They took a financial loss. They owed the label 2 more albums, but instead pulled everything and wanted nothing to do with this label, publicly denounced the label, and found a label that has 0 ties at all to white supremacy. The facts are, when he was signed with that label, like more than a decade ago, they didn't have anyone of the sort on their label at all.
Okay, before we go any further, I just want to take a moment and highlight some of the things that she said here. She says that when her husband signed with this label like a decade ago, that this label didn't have any racist bands signed with them. And that it wasn't until this label signed some racist bands that her husband then decided he had to leave the label. And in doing so, he just up and left everything. He left owing them money and 2 more albums. But he had to just leave to go find a less racist label. Let's just keep that in mind as we continue.
I don't care about 90% of the rumors that are started about me, but that's a rumor that can literally get you killed. Like, in this climate, if you accuse someone of being a racist or being a white supremacist, you can have people end up at your house with guns.
What? Now, I'm a little confused what she means there. Like, does she mean that the people who are making these accusations could possibly wind up with people at their house with guns threatening them? Or is she saying that the people who are accused of being racist will end up with people at their house with guns? Because who would want to shoot possible alleged racists other than people affected by racism? So is she suggesting that people of color, upon hearing that she might be racist, could possibly end up at her door with guns threatening her life?
My husband has responded publicly multiple times about all of this. But this is what he posted on my Instagram earlier, which said that he is not a white supremacist. He is part of the Troth, which is an inclusive heathen community, and he has signed Proclamation 127, which takes a direct stance against bigotry of any. I don't know who you are in real life, but I'm sorry if I've ever said anything involving your husband's belief. Did you participate in that dialogue? Because I'm telling you right now, it's not true. It's never been true. It'll never be true. We would never support that kind of thinking. We have been outspoken in our support for Black Lives Matter.
Again, I just want to take a moment and kind of highlight what she says there. She says, it'll never be true because we could never support that kind of thinking. We could never support that kind of thinking.
All right. Americans don't agree with this. I just find it that gun that could get you killed. That was a really bizarre comment. Now, someone that lives in Minnesota says that she lives in one of the whitest suburbs. So, it's really interesting.
We have donated our time, our money, resources to help communities that were ravaged by the riots related to George Floyd and his murder. That's who we are. When Minneapolis was burning to the ground, my husband went to multiple Dollar Trees, filled up our car, and we dropped off all kinds of toiletries and essential needs like Q-tips and tampons and toothbrushes and toothpaste, things that people couldn't get because of those riots.
Okay, next we're going to meet Darcy. the
No.
white woman that Katie.
Do you remember, did anyone see the interview with Darcy when she didn't actually tell the story correct? And she talks about the fact about the flag getting stolen. Do you remember that? And Katie has to go, and Darcy doesn't tell the story as it should be told. It's really quite interesting. Right, here we go. Here's Darcy. Do you remember Darcy?
He felt was appropriate to come on panel and vouch for her not being racist.
Hi, this is my friend Darcy. She knows me in real life.
There is not 1 ounce of racism in your body. There is not 1 ounce of racism in Todd's body. You know, make false accusations, and then all of a sudden people are at your door and you have a little child, and you are taking care of that child, and you're protecting your home and your family. And yes, your gay pride, flag got stolen. I remember that.
And in fact, it was word for word exactly as what Katie had said before. Not a racist bone in the body, and they weren't like that. And then she talks about just like your gay pride flag getting stolen. Oopsies, she told the wrong story. Whoopsies. Hello, cheap glass.
No, apparently you don't remember that because it wasn't stolen. That was never Katie's claim, but something tells me you might not need to remember that going forward.
It got it was like they were bending it down, and I told you all of the issues we were having with that flag.
Yes.
No,
I told you all of the issues that I was having. How dare you not remember?
the neighborhood that we live in, it's very conservative.
It is.
And there's a lot of people that are homophobic.
Yes. And you are not, because one of your besties is, gay. Remember when
Now, she says one of your besties is gay. She doesn't say that you're gay. She says one of your besties is gay. That's what she says. One of your besties is gay. She doesn't say, and you're bisexual. Why wouldn't she have said, and you are gay? That she hasn't stuck to the story again.
when you were telling me about that when you guys went and you made Noki together?
We went to the Science Museum. Cleopatra, it was the flag was not stolen. Darcy did not, it was not stolen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Got it mixed up. I'm getting a lot of things mixed up. Don't
No,
worry about
my story has not changed, Cleopatra. My story has never changed. Darcy misspoke. Go check my thread, Cleopatra.
Darcy misspoke. Oh, no. Darcy. Well, actually, yes, she did say that on the video, didn't she? Sexually fluid, and then it was, now she's bi. But I'm wanting to know, why didn't her friend talk about her sexuality if they're talking about gay pride and stuff like that? Anyway, Darcy blows it.
Don't be a troll.
Well, Katie, I guess it wasn't a good thing for me to come on because you
No, fine.
all I gotta say is social media is just a bunch of assholes.
They said that I was one of the few YouTubers that took a stance for Black Lives Matter. That's because that's who I am. It's not performative for us at all. It's like our lives.
Sure is.
And I don't have friends that
That's why she goes and brags about it. You know what? Most people do it, and they don't talk about it. Anyway.
that are racist. I don't associate with racists. That's just not me. Yeah. I will stand up for LGBTQ plus always. I will always stand up for Black Lives Matter. I will always stand up for anyone that is facing any sort of hate.
Bullshit. This is bullshit.
You guys are going to get us killed with these rumors. You're literally going to get us killed.
Anyways, whatever.
This is me. I'm not racist. My husband is not racist. He is not on a racist record label. When he signed, there was not any racists on that record label, at all. Oh my God, Susan, go away. Susan, you are, really, Susan? That woman's been trolling me for over a year.
This was when I started really getting interested in her, and I realized that there was something wrong with her. Because I thought, this is really not normal behavior to have on a live.
He makes so many different fake accounts.
And of course, what Katie Joy response would ever be complete without not just the live stream or tons of tweets or tons of Instagram posts, but also
The video.
And in today's climate, this is probably one of the worst things you want to be accused of, because this last summer was so terrible for the entire United States. We had so much injustice that happened. We grew up in Minneapolis. What happened to George Floyd was not far away from where we grew up. I've spoken out repeatedly about the injustices that so many people and people of color face. I have spoken out against all of this police brutality. I have stood up and supported Black Lives Matter. I am against any form of racism, and so is my husband. We are.
Yes, she did sound like the one that did the threats on that recording. Yes, that did sound like her.
So against any form of hate. And because he made a video where he was using runes, Nordic runes from the Vikings era, it's an alphabet. This is not a...
Oh, they've sped up the audio. I think the people that put the clip together sped up the audio, the Fox. That's why she sounds like she's on helium.
Just because, anyways, here's my husband's statement. And my husband will stick up for me, and I will stick up for him. This is what he said. And this is a comment he made. I am a Norse heathen spiritual path, and I'm also a musician in black metal band, that they are using those things to come up with this narrative. Unfortunately, in those two worlds I just spoke of, there is a loud minority of people who actually are white supremacists, so they try to connect dots, but there is no connection. I am a dues-paying member of the Troth, which is an inclusive heathen community. I've also signed Proclamation 127, which is taking a direct stance against bigotry in any form. But because these people only know a tiny fraction about me and my life, they think they have all the info. And lastly, I'd like to say I respectfully... Oh, he's talking about wolves. There is people, bad people.
He's talking about wolves. Why is he talking about wolves?
A tiny fraction of people that have taken runes, that are a language, right? They're the alphabet. It's being appropriated by hate groups, and it's not okay. And just because a hate group takes something over, the community itself doesn't lose their history. They don't get to lose their culture because some really bad people took some runes over because they decided that this was going to be theirs, right? I don't know how people can come up with this stuff because it's so opposite of who we are. And I understand, I am a public figure now, and there's a lot of interest in me. It's no different than me having grandparents from Germany, right? So my grandparents are from Germany. Does that make me? And then when I spoke for him, I was accused of speaking for him, and
The eye roll. I think it's just the lack of empathy that they've got for the people that it is offensive to.
he needs to speak for people himself. And I said, no, he doesn't need to speak for himself.
And next we have a tweet where she made a statement today. Due to a defamatory and dangerous rumor regarding my family and husband, we are addressing recent videos accusing my husband and his band of being white supremacists. In this political climate, making accusations like this is not only irresponsible but dangerous. Our statement is as follows. 1. My husband's band is not anti-Semitic or racist.
Just remember all the stuff that you've heard before, because you're about to hear it. You're about to hear version 3, and we're still going to get the version 4 yet.
Moribund Records is a large independent label that globally distributes metal music. Canister signed with the label for global distribution purposes. They were signed to a 2-album contract with an option for a 3rd, which they fulfilled in 2012.
Now, remember, she said right at the start that they had only done 1 album and they walked away from 2. Now they're saying that they've fulfilled. They signed a 2-album contract with an option of a 3rd, which they fulfilled in 2012. So now they fulfilled their album thing, which is totally different to what was said at the start.
2. The band was on hiatus from 2012 to 2019 due to her son's medical condition. When the band regrouped to record their third album, they became aware of an album published by Moribund that was by a controversial band known for anti-Semitic lyrics. Moribund offered Canisteris the third album option. Canisteris declined because of their association with this band. Canisteris condemns racism and anti-Semitism. Their new label also condemns racism and white supremacy. 4. None of the music made by Canisteris is anti-Semitic or racist. 5. Labeling Canisteris racist or anti-Semitic is defamatory and untrue. 6. Canisteris is a group composed of heathen men that have signed Proclamation 127 denouncing racism, white supremacy, and hate. 7. My husband is a member of the Trav, a German heathen religious.
See, a German heathen religion. So we've gone from having, they had a 3-album deal, they did 1 album, walked away with a loss from 2. In this one, they're saying that they did a 2-album deal and they didn't take up the 3rd.
This organization. The organization denounces discrimination. 8. What is the Trav? The Trav exists in order to celebrate our religious and cultural heritage rather than to promote political, racial, social, or other agendas. Membership in the Trav and participation in our activities is open to worthy folks regardless of race, ethnic origin, gender, or sexual orientation, and we do not permit discrimination on these grounds in the activities.
North is heathen. Oh, is it? It's Declaration 127, is it? Not proclamation. Oh, interesting. God, delude.
Of the Trav or any of its affiliated groups. If you feel drawn to the ways of the heathen North and would like to participate in our growing community, we invite you to drop us a line at the email addresses listed here. Help us in the challenging work of restoring the elder Trav to a proud, open, and active role in our society, culture, and world. The old gods are calling. To hear their call is a joy, an honor, and also a duty. If they are calling to you, it is time to take your place among friends and kin and bring new honor and strength to our ancient heathen faith. 9. Canisteris is an independent band. They are not paid by their record labels, don't tour, and don't make music for profit. They did not receive any payment from Moribund Records. 10. Guilt by association is not guilt. Because bad actors exist in the world of metal does not mean all artists are bad. This is a dangerous and slippery slope. It would be akin to saying artists signed.
Bad actors exist in the world of metal. Well, that's what I'm saying. He could have chosen another. He could have chosen another symbol. You don't have to choose the symbol that had to do with Nazi Germany. The other thing was, it says they did not receive any payment from Moribund Records. I find that really hard to believe, because what's the point of having a record deal if you're not getting money?
To RCA or Jive are pedophiles because R. Kelly is charged with these crimes. 11. Implying malicious intent to my husband and his band for signing with Moribund Records is defamatory and untrue. Okay, let's just remind ourselves of some of these claims here that Katie made. She says that when her husband signed with this album label in 2009, that they were not known for signing racist bands, and they were not known for attracting such bands. And that it wasn't until her husband learned of them having signed these bands that he then said, nope, that's enough, I'm out of here. And he left money on the table, and he left owing them 2 more albums, or 1 more album, depending on which version you listen to. And in other words, he did not fulfill the terms of his contract, and that is why he left to find a new label that didn't promote racism. That's what Katie says. Now, let's look at what the evidence shows. This is from a January 6, 2000 article called The Price is White. In the article, it discusses how racist metal bands are really a multi-million-dollar industry now. It says, in fact, a report coming out this month warns that Moribund is part of a multi-million-dollar industry that's pushing racist rock. So as far back as 2000, that's 21 years ago, this label was known for signing racist bands.
What do you reckon about that?
Further on down the front page of this article. It says, Thompson says this label, which he started in 1991, is not political or racist, but encourages freedom of speech. There's a difference between being proud of one's heritage or culture and being flat out racist or prejudiced to other cultures. I just wanted to point this out here because in this interview, he's saying how he's just proud of his heritage or culture rather than being racist. You know, kind of like one Norseman we know, how proud he is of his ruins. Okay, this next screenshot is a moribund called 2015 mail order catalog. It's the first page of the listings of all the albums and everything that they have for sale in their mail.
So remember, this is 2015 after they've walked away, okay? So remember, he's left the record album now. He's left. It's a 2015 mail order catalog. Bear that in mind.
Order catalog. And this next screenshot is the second page of this catalog. And down here towards the bottom, you can see Dead 137, Dead 181. Both of those are advertising Canistairs albums for sale for $10.99 each. This next screenshot is from a forum post. It's a list of labels to avoid should you not want to give money to labels for racist reasons or otherwise. It says, this list is here largely to inform. While many of these labels make themselves obvious from their lineup and bands, some of the more devious and add-in bands that aren't associated with the ideologists pick up the rights to albums from other less shady labels. Okay, and number 57 on this list was Moribund Records. Okay, I'm actually upset about this one since these guys were the label for Ayat, one of Lebanon's better black metal acts. But it seems these guys are now actively trying to sue platforms like PayPal and even some credit card companies for kicking neo-Nazis off their platforms. Okay, this next.
So it was listed, it was on the list of record labels to avoid. So he just stated he was Chippewa, and that was a bit ago, say different native tribe. Yeah, Gardloo, you'll find that everything changes. I have got no idea.
Screenshot is from an article discussing how PayPal deplatformed certain labels, including Moribund. Goes on to say, what we do find interesting is that the same SJW link, which claims of right-wing extremists and neo-Nazi activity, is found in the letter sent to HHR. And it goes on to discuss how they didn't even notify the labels or anything, they just dropped them because of their views. And this last screenshot comes from an...
Yeah, sorry, to avoid. That's right, labels to avoid. Oh, hello back. Welcome back, Dee. Oh, is Osbel here? Oh, the picture. Oh, yeah, the picture. As he tries to tell me he's just there. Not okay.
Interview that Todd gave the summer of 2019. The interviewer asks, your first two albums were released by Moribund Records, and I must admit it felt like ages since I last heard the name. Perhaps I even confused it with another label. Anyway, both of you being label owners back then, what made you decide to work with Moribund, and did this cooperation succeed in terms of making more people aware of Canistairs, whom you might not have reached through God is Myth, which is Todd's record label at the time? Todd says, I must admit that the name God is Myth Records is one of my favorite things I've ever done in the music business. And as far as Moribund goes, you pretty hit the nail on the head. We simply decided at the time that Moribund was the best label for us due to the fact that they have worldwide distribution. So we signed a 2-album, 10-year deal with them, which now makes us free agents as that contract expires in August of this year. That would be August of 2019. So according to that evidence, Todd left the label because he fulfilled the terms of his contract, which was 10 years and 2 albums, which he served 10 years under the contract, and he produced 2 albums for the label. So that's why he left, and that's why he went to another label. And in fact, he never once publicly denounced this label. He hasn't said a word against this label. He hasn't come out and spoken against their practices, or nor does he apologize for having been associated with this label. Now, remember earlier, Katie says that she doesn't associate or support anyone with this kind of thinking. Yet, here was her and her husband effectively doing work for this label.
Isn't that interesting?
Helping them earn money on the work of Todd and his art. I also want to point out that, yeah, since as early as 2000, there were reports being written in the scene here, in the music scene, about this label's practice of seeking out and trying to appeal to bands that push the limits as far as racial divides go. This was known. This was
10 years and 2 albums seems like a lot, not a very good deal for either part, to be honest. But anyway,
known enough to be written about and put up on the internet. But yet, Todd, mind you, this is his music scene. This is where he lives, he breathes. This is the music he knows. Are we supposed to believe that he didn't know this about one of the biggest and oldest labels in this genre? I do want to take 1 second here, though, and discuss his new label, Buying Groove, because it's been stated several times now that his new label is not known for supporting racism, and they are, in fact, known for promoting inclusiveness. And from all things that I can find, this does hold to be true, it seems. I felt it important to add that here because I know that this genre of music does kind of have a bad reputation for things like racism. So I wanted to be sure to point this out about Buying Groove recordings because they do appear to be the exception in the.
why? I mean, why can't they just tell the truth and say the contract expired? Why all the smoke and mirror and all the lies? That's what I want to know. Is she going to deny that he did that? Is she going to state that he lied in those interviews? She would get they would get a lot more credibility if they showed some empathy towards people and just kept a consistent story. This is what happens when you lay out everything in a timeline.
This genre. Okay, so the last racism fail, I guess, here that I'm going to point out by Todd and or Katie is Todd's reading list.
Oh,
Specifically, one book that he gave 4 stars to. So let's go check that out.
no, we all know
the
better.
first screenshot here shows that this is, in fact, Katie's husband, and this is from the site Goodreads. And it shows that he gave 4 reviews, and he has some favorite books or whatnot. And then the next screenshot shows one of those books, and that book, as you can see, is Mein Kampf. And if you go over here to the right, you see that he gave the book 4 stars. He rated this book 4 stars. And now, before I go into this next part, I just want to say that I don't think that they are, either of these two are like racist exactly, or intentionally racist, that's for sure. But I do think that, like myself, they are also oftentimes racially insensitive, and rather than listening when it's being pointed out for them, they are fighting back. And that is the problem. That is the issue that I see with this. So, and this is why I'm making this video, so other people can see what it is we're talking about when people like Todd Chrisley say this, and why it is we say these things. Because
see you, Cal.
you're never going to learn if you don't learn to listen, and they don't listen. Next, I just want to call attention to a post she made back around the George Floyd riots about Philando Castile. She writes, "It's awful. You have no idea how much Philando's death has left this huge imprint on our hearts. We haven't forgotten him. We haven't forgotten his family or his legacy. We haven't forgotten the piece of shit officer walked free and never saw a day of prison time. We sat and watched our city refuse to condemn him or even fire him. We sat and watched our government defend their officers. George Floyd's death was equally shocking. Both deaths captured on video. George begging to breathe, officers just sitting there doing nothing. It's sick. This time, all the officers were fired immediately. Our major and police chief took immediate steps to denounce these officers and their behavior. So the response was so different, but it is too late." So I want to wrap this up by bringing attention to a blog post that she wrote on July 9, 2016. This blog post was discussing the events that happened in her hometown around Philando Castile. In her blog post, she writes, "There was a live stream video that went viral. We only saw the moments after he was shot multiple times by the officer. We did not witness what occurred before. My newsfeed has blown up of people fighting about what happened and has divided between pro-Black lives and pro-cops. I sit here on the fence, supporting both. As a mother of a child that is disabled, I live in a world of inequality. I know what it feels like to be marginalized because of my son. Please don't think I'm discounting what happened last week. In fact, of any person, I'm trying my best to understand. I grew up in the town where the officers serve. It is a small town, but doesn't.
She said Toad has a relative or something, or a school friend or something. They said they had a connection. See how the story has changed?
Black diversity. In fact, my parents lived next door to immigrants from Tibet. As a child, I admired and respected the police force. They are involved and invested. Our town isn't full of cops that are racist. I do know that racial inequality exists. I do know that gun violence is out of control in our country. And I know that children are witnessing violence by guns more than we would like to admit. We need laws to change what is currently going on with guns. We need better training for police officers and training about profiling. We need better programs to help those living in poverty actually get out of poverty.
She could have just rehashed that story, because what she actually wrote was good. I actually thought that was a really good blog post, actually.
So I'm going to end this video on 2 notes. One, the entire time that she or Todd spoke about the runes and about why they should be allowed to use them and to share them and to put them out in the world and to keep putting them and tagging them and things, but they never once considered the effect that their actions were having on other people, on those deeply affected by such imagery. And lastly, I want to point out that the blog post in which I just read from is the one and only blog post that Katie wrote about Philando's murder. Throughout the entire blog post, not once did she say his name. Okay, that's time for membership.
All right, so there you go. Was that insightful? Because that was very educational for me. I learned a lot. And I saw some of those. I remember the woman coming onto the stream. But I found the whole thing to be really, really fascinating. So on that note, I am going to call it a night. I've got university in the morning. It's remote learning still. We find out I have a feeling we're going to be extended. We had another 20 cases today. 15 were 5 were isolating at the time. So I have a feeling we'll be extended for another week, which I'm actually happy about. It means that I can spend all day in court with Jordan, because that's really what I want to do on Friday. I don't really want to be working. Plus, I've actually had to take holidays, actually. I've had to take leave, which, I've only got 1 more day's leave left, and then I'm on leave without pay. So there is a downside for it if it happens, but, it is what it is. Anyway, thank you for joining me, everybody. And, make sure you hit like. Oh, you may have heard me making noise before. I actually decided to start the mini diamond dot. For some reason, when I'm live streaming, I have to do some type of doodling, or I have to do something. So usually I just do stuff on the page, particularly when we're watching videos. So yeah, I've done that. That's what I've done so far. I'm up to I've done that much of the ear. Yeah, that's right, Me More Dragon. It's, I'm not complaining about it. I mean, I'm still better off than lots of other people. But it's just the reality of what we've got to do. But yeah, I fortunately had holidays up. So it means, though, if we are back, I'll be working on a day off. So what they'll do is they'll swap out, they'll pay me a holiday day eventually. Anyway, thank you all for joining me, and I will catch you all again tomorrow night, and we'll see what we've got for tomorrow night. See you later.